All right, thank you everyone. Wanted to give a little bit of time there. So we will get started with today's webinar. Again, my name is Shirlene and I'm with Opal Group. Today's webinar is titled Transforming Organizational Content to Learning Experiences Rapidly, Keeping Up with the Velocity. So today's session, we're going to hear from two speakers, Vikas Joshi, the CEO of Harbinger Group, and Poonam Jaipuria, VP of e-learning at Harbinger Interactive Learning. So a little bit about your presenters today before we kick it off. Vikas Joshi is a business leader who is passionate about product development and technology entrepreneurship. His mission is to help create software products that make a difference. A key part of that mission is to inspire tech professionals and entrepreneurs to grow and develop. Now let's jump over. Our second presenter is Poonam Jaipuria. She is the Vice President of e-learning at Harbinger Interactive Learning. She's a seasonal e-learning professional with over 16 years of experience. She started her career as a programmer with device driver programming and moved on to take key responsibilities across a varied range of functions from product design, engineering, and management to leading sales and product marketing. So please join me. I will hand the microphone off to our two presenters today for our webinar. Now, if you have questions while they are presenting, please submit those in the Q&A function, the Q&A box for today's webinar, and we will try to get to all of those for you. Thank you so much, and we'll get started.
Thank you very much, Charlene, and warm welcome to everybody. I want to take a moment to explain our topic today. It's a rather longish title, isn't it? It's very important to see that no matter which HR executive you talk to, talent management is a growing part of their responsibility, and learning and development is a big piece of it. Skill development, leadership development, and other forms of learning are top of the priority for many learning leaders. And learning is not just a matter of a bunch of training programs. It's a broader construct that encompasses a range of experiences that an employee encounters during the course of a day's work. So HR and L&D are therefore increasingly concerned with creating learning experiences. And that's one part of the title here, learning experiences, not just training programs. The other part is about organizational content. Today's organizations capture a swathe of content in information systems. Just a while ago, I was looking at my cell phone, and here's an update from Stamford, Connecticut, October 21st, 2020. Gartner unveils top predictions for IT organizations in 2021 and beyond. And one of their predictions is by 2024, that's just 3 years from now, 75% of conversations at work will be recorded. 75% of conversations at work will be recorded, enabling the discovery of added organizational value. And they go on to say that conversations are shifting from traditional face-to-face real-time communications, and they're taking place over cloud meeting solutions, meeting platforms, and virtual assistants. In most cases, such tools record these conversations. So you have organizational content that is available readily, whether it is Zoom meetings, corporate policies, memos, case studies, pictures, videos of work, all of that is organizational content. Some of it, much of it, is generated by employees, and therefore we call it user-generated content. And that content is foundational to building learning experiences because that content is really the secret sauce of the organization. You're not going to find it anywhere else. So the key issue then is how to take the organizational content that's accumulating rapidly and transform it into learning experiences that employees can encounter during the course of work. For example, how do I take a customer visit report and create a case study for sales staff? Or how do I use a video recording of a new product demo meeting and then create learning modules for my product staff? How to capture a conversation in Microsoft Teams and create some learning materials for support people. Those are the types of questions we're going to deal with today, right? And how to do this rapidly. What that means is with as much automation as possible. So there is minimum time lag between the time some new product literature, for example, comes up and the time the product training rolls out. There is minimal gap between the two. Sounds good? So that's kind of an introduction to the topic. And here's our promise to you. By the end of this session, you'll be able to tell what kind of content is suitable for rapid transformation into learning, know how to provide rich learning experiences to your employees, name the key technologies for creating such learning experiences, and learn how to accelerate the content transformation. Sounds good? And how are we going to do this? Start with key shifts in the role of L&D. Start looking at where our current processes are falling short. Why are we not keeping up with the needs of learners? Propose a new process for high velocity content transformation. That's the meat of today's session. And finally, a real life example of a powerful learning experience. We show you how we took a meeting recording and converted it into micro learning. Sounds good? So let's start with the first part, which is really a bit of context setting, and that is key shifts in L&D's role that may be going unnoticed. Let's take a moment and ask ourselves, what's changing for L&D in particular? Here's an example: the time people spend on collaboration tools. As you can see, 2.7 billion online meetings in one day. And that's a 3 times growth in a span of 2 weeks after the pandemic started. Okay, this is data from Microsoft Teams. It's no different with Zoom and other collaboration tools. And that's not the only shift. There are many others. For example, businesses expect people to reskill themselves faster. Employees care less for studio quality product. What they need is timely learning content. People do not have time to go visit the LMS. They want to see learning where they are. For example, the salespeople want to see it in their CRM systems, or other types of contributors. No matter which systems they live in, they would like to see their learning experiences pop up there, right where they are. So those are the challenges. And then there are opportunities as well. For one thing, everyone is online a lot more. So that means you have their attention through the medium of e-learning. And there's a tsunami of user-generated content. And there are technologies that let you tap into such content, right? So the question is, given all these changes, where do we go from here, right? And I want to ask you this question. In your experience, what types of training change quite rapidly? In other words, you need to keep up much more. Select one or more options. Go ahead, the poll is up. I have done this poll on a variety of occasions, and there are two observations. Technology training generally comes up as the most volatile, low shelf life training. At the same time, all others are also selected to varying degrees as being in need of updates. So it's not like there is any kind of training that's good forever or for any length of time. You do need to refresh them a lot. If you can end the poll, we can move on to the next slide, Henry. Thank you. Let's start with something like sales training. Now, you may have a new product literature that goes with a product, and that could potentially be converted into new product training, or there might be success stories where, customers are using your products or service offerings in a creative way to produce, business outcomes. Those could easily be, rolled out as case studies and study materials. In the area of leadership training, there is a lot of user-generated content as well. For example, handling critical situations. There's a lot of meetings that are about handling critical situations. There's a lot of communication that's about handling critical situations. Oftentimes, to take a decision, you need to go back to company values, because each company has its own boundaries and beliefs and non-negotiables, and you need to make decisions within that framework. So such decisions generate, obviously, live cases where you can use those cases to teach values of the company. In product training, you have product support conversations or troubleshooting, conversations. All these could be used for, potentially generating learning experiences. So these are the types of training that involve user-generated content. And therefore, and this is not an exhaustive list, there are many other types of training that could use user-generated content. I only use these to illustrate the point. And not everything is useful. Obviously, some of it, is of no instructional value, but we will come to that later. For now, let's note that there is a lot of user-generated content that's useful for e-learning production. So now I have two questions for you. The first question is, how much is your learning content in sync with your users' evolving needs? Does it lag behind substantially? And you have to play a big catch-up game? Or does it stay completely in sync? Or somewhere in between? And again, more than a poll, this is a reflection question. And what I have noticed is hardly anybody ever says our training content is perfectly in sync with what the learner needs. Usually there is a lag, right? And it might sound rather far-fetched and ambitious to say that they could even possibly stay in sync, but I can show you later today situations where you could accomplish that through automation. In other words, your learning content and learning experiences could closely follow your learners' needs as they evolve. End the poll, please, and let's do one more. And this is my third and last question for you. And that's about leveraging user-generated content for training. As L&D leaders, how much value are you getting out of UGC or organizational content? And maybe Charlene or Henry, you could interpret the results for us. What are you seeing there? Because my view doesn't show it here right now.
No worries, Vikas. It looks like 50% of those voted are minimal in terms of how much value is L&D getting out of user-generated content. And then 45% is answered to a good extent, and 8% answered most learning content is based on UGC.
Perfect, perfect. Thank you, thank you. That's great. And again, what those answers tell us is there's a movement toward user-generated content. If we had done this poll 10 years back, the answer would be UGC. What is that? You know, because all content comes from publishers or subject matter experts. But now, you know, a good 50% are saying minimal, which means there's some beginning, and another 40-odd% are saying yes to a good extent. Great. So let's just do a quick recap of everything we learned up to this time. We saw that there are shifts in the workplace, and those have important implications for L&D. There's a lag between the needs of learners and the training available. User-generated content, UGC, is an opportunity. And then L&D can facilitate the curation and conversion of content, as well as the distribution of learning experiences. So this is where we take a deep breath and say, why is this not happening today if it's such a good idea? Where are we falling short? And the issue is with the process. Here's the traditional process for content conversion into learning experiences. Starting with raw content from a subject matter expert, an instructional designer would create and document the content outline. The subject matter expert would review that. Then the instructional designer would create a storyboard. The subject matter expert would review the storyboard. Then the e-learning developers would come in and start using various tools to outline the learning program. The multimedia development teams would produce the video, audio, and other graphic content. Then the instructional designer and the subject matter expert would review everything and sign off. And then this e-learning program would be released into the learning management system. That's the process. Why is this process slow? We have identified 5 reasons. The very first is dependence on the subject matter experts for sourcing content, right? So now you're talking about availability of the subject matter experts and their ability to source the content manually. Number 2, a complete lack of discovery process for newly generated user-generated useful content. For example, what are some new case studies that we could teach our salespeople? What kind of information is out there about our new product features? There is no discovery process. You know, the expert has to know it. That's the only discovery process. Long time cycles of e-learning production, typically 3 to 6 weeks. The need for repeated and time-consuming reviews by subject matter experts. You saw on the previous slide, there are multiple reviews. And then the time gap between the release and consumption of learning content. And this is subtle, but this is important to understand. Even if your e-learning program is ready to roll and it's deployed on the learning management system, it's pretty much sitting there until someone finds it. right? So there's another discovery process out there. So all these things are slowing down the time to value for learning leaders. Bottom line is there's a need for revamping this traditional process. How do you do that? Well, you come up with a new process. What does that look like? Let's see. Here's a new process for content conversion. You start with the sources of UGC, okay? What are some of the places in your organization that are happening repositories of content where new and useful content appears time and time again? Identify those. Tag the content for discovery. You want to make it easy for content to get searched and discovered. Transform the content using AI tools. A lot of the content is pretty much useless, right? So you need to be able to curate it automatically using AI as much as you can and transforming before you manually curate it. And that fourth step is where the subject matter expert comes in. And that's the only time for the subject matter expert in this process. And finally, deliver the learning experiences in the flow of work, not necessarily through the LMS. So here are some of the sources of user-generated content. It could be your Microsoft Dynamics CRM or Salesforce CRM, or your marketing systems. All those are repositories of content related to products and markets. Then your collaboration tools like Teams, Slack, or Zoom meetings. Every Zoom meeting can potentially be recorded. And along with the recording, you can get a transcript, a textual transcript, and you can also get a chat log. All these are user-generated content. Social forums. Each organization has some kind of a social network within the organization. We use one called SAP Jam. That's our enterprise social network. I'm sure your organizations have such networks too. They generate a ton of content. These are the places, and these are some of the places. That could be other systems. You can think of those where you will find user-generated content. That could be content management systems, for example. The next step is to tag and extract the content, because you wanna bring that content over to the AI tools and transform it into learning artifacts. For example, take a video, convert it into a transcript, take the transcript, summarize it, take the summary, create questions out of it. All of these things can potentially occur as a result of using AI tools. So you don't necessarily need manual intervention yet. Then you bring in the subject matter expert to manually curate, right? Because AI-based summaries may leave out something important or may be phrased inelegantly, so the subject matter expert can polish those. The AI question generators might generate dopey questions. Well, the manual curator could pretty much delete those. So that's where you have manual intervention. And finally, deliver the learning experience, whether it's a quiz or a game or an assessment or a presentation or a short lesson or a micro-learning module or an interactive video. Deliver it not just on LMS, but in the flow of work, right inside Teams or Slack or learning experience platforms or whatever systems the users spend most of their time in. So that's the new process of content conversion. And there are several benefits to doing it this way. What are they? First of all, the timeline takes less than a week for something like this to happen. It takes days instead of weeks. A variety of useful content could pass through this process to create learning content rapidly. Most of the process is automated with reduced dependency on subject matter experts. Now, you will need more time of subject matter experts because you're creating more of this, okay? But the time is used efficiently and effectively because the AI is doing some of the work and the discovery process is doing some of the work that today SMEs are doing themselves. And finally, it cuts down unnecessary production investment because the learners are okay with Zoom quality video, for example. They don't need, production quality materials at all times. Many times, what's more important is to get the material on time when they need it, rather than, studio quality learning experiences. So those are the benefits of the new process. Now, obviously, there's going to be long shelf life content that you're going to use over and over and over again. You could, of course, get back to the traditional process to create, an e-learning module that has the right production quality and so on. All right, so now is the show time. I have been talking for too long, so we should show you something, right? So I'm going to invite my colleague, Poonam Jaipuria, who heads Harbinger's e-learning business, to show you what we have done and how we have put some of these ideas in practice. So over to you, Poonam.
Thank you, Vikas. Can you stop sharing so I could share my screen for demo?
Sure. Here you go.
Thank you. Okay, so thanks, Vikas, for that process. So I'm here to share an experience where we used that process for one of our internal discussions meeting, which happened over Zoom. So on one around June timeframe, we had this session, a very interesting topic called How to Talk to a CEO. And it was an internal training session for frontline managers to have better presentation skills. And as you can imagine, a lot of the content was coming through not the PowerPoint by the SME, but a lot of interesting stories and best practices or tips being shared by the attendees in that meeting. So the PowerPoint really had some key bullet points, and a lot of content was coming through the discussions, stories from people. At the end of the meeting, what we realized is this is very good content, something which has very best practices and tips which could be used on an ongoing basis. Now, there was a rarest of a possibility that this content of this quality could have been created with a SME and we could have created an e-learning course around it. So what we said is, why don't we use this user-generated content and create some valuable learning out of it? And that's where we started with an interesting process. The first thing we did was to convert this video into an audio into a recording, text transcript. So we used some AI tools, and using which we were able to create this transcript. Now, once the transcript was ready, we used a tool called Quillians, which helped us convert this content into useful questions. So Quillians is nothing but an AI-powered platform which takes raw text, as you can see on my screen here, and it generates questions out of it using a very simple process where you can put the content, create these, so using the content, Quillians generates these keywords, and then one can have a quick review of the content for language, and that's it. Quillians within seconds using AI can generate some very useful questions, WH questions, summary of the whole, of the entire training session. So we used this as an input, and we also looked at the transcript and highlighted the key points which were being discussed in that meeting. These highlights then became an input to our L&D team member, who basically looked at it and cleaned it up for language and to fit it well into a nugget. Once the nuggets were highlighted and the questions were ready, the next step was to create nudges out of it. And that's where a tool called SprinkleZone by Harbinger helped us. So we took the nudges, and if we quickly walk you through this interface of SprinkleZone. So I am a learner, logged in as a learner. So it shows me my dashboard of the nuggets which have been assigned to me. I can see some popular nuggets, some new things which have been added. And now as a admin, I need to create a new nugget on how to talk to a CEO. So it has a very simple interface, as you can see, where I can go and simply add content and bullet points. And it's a very easy to use tool. So anyone could start using SprinkleZone in a matter of minutes. And once I have created my nuggets, they are ready to push out to my team, my employees, within a few minutes. And that's it. The good thing is, it doesn't stop here. How do I bring these nuggets in the flow of work? So Harbinger uses Teams for day-to-day collaboration. So making these nuggets available in the flow of work is important. So as you can see, I'm actually in my Teams interface, and I will log in to SprinkleZone. And here it is, exactly the same SprinkleZone is now available inside Teams. So we were able to integrate SprinkleZone with Teams. Of course, one can do it with any other collaboration platform. One may have like Slack or any other platform. And that's it. So Vikas, over to you once again. Vikas? So just to summarize, what we saw was we took a meeting recording and we converted into a transcript. The transcript was used as an input to create questions, and it also created nudges, which were delivered through Teams in the flow of work. As simple as that. And this entire process, right from the meeting to nudges, was in less than 3 days. We were able to make that happen. And SprinkleZone not only just limits it to delivery, but it has some amazing analytics on the back end, which helps the stakeholders to find out the usage patterns and the effectiveness of these nudges. So yes, that was a quick recap of what we saw. Thank you.
Thank you, Poonam. And one of the things I wanted to stress about this whole experience was at the time the meeting occurred, when we talked about, we just got talking about how to talk to a CEO, little did we know that we were gonna use this content and curate it and create micro-learning experiences and push them out through Microsoft Teams. This entire vision was totally not there. We just had a meeting. I told a few stories, few other people told their stories, and then we had a recording of the meeting. And then we looked at it and said, wow, this is useful. We could do something with this. And then, the wheels started turning, and that's what ultimately ended up with a SprinkleZone delivered nudges that appear in Teams. And now we have hundreds of people in the company that can access these learning materials that popped out of a meeting, literally one meeting. So it's a pretty dramatic illustration of the power of transforming organizational content rapidly into learning experiences. So with that, I'm gonna quickly bring this to our final points. In terms of our company, Harbinger could help you in 3 different ways. Some of these tools that Poonam mentioned, Quillians, Exaltive, SprinkleZone, they're all out there. Quillians is an AI-powered tool for generating questions and summary from content. So you literally upload a PDF or just copy a bunch of text or a transcript, and it would give you questions based on that. Exaltive, likewise, works on videos. So you could pretty much use a YouTube video or something that you have in your Vimeo, video storage, and point Exaltive to that, and it would let you embed interactive elements such as questions or other types of activities within the flow of the video, right on the timeline. This is great for learning experiences. To integrate some of this stuff, we enable workflow automation through platform integrations, and we generate real-time people analytics using API-based integrations. We have the tech wherewithal to do that. And finally, content transformation. We do undertake fairly big projects to convert content that is in legacy formats to new learning experiences. For example, there's lots and lots of Flash content. And as you know, Adobe is sunsetting Flash end of this year. So there's many different customers that are asking us to sort of find a way to automate the conversion of their Flash content to newer formats. Modernizing content using automation. All of that is work that we do. Here's some of us. We do HR tech, consulting, learning technology, user experience design, product management. There's a variety of different things we do that are here. I'm gonna quickly talk about Harbinger Group here. We have different services here: product engineering, integrations, AI solutions, instructor-led training, virtual instructor-led training, nudge learning, custom learning, modernization. We have a fairly large team with varying skills, a total 750 plus head count. We just celebrated this month, we celebrated 30 years of operations from the day we were founded. And we have had the great fortune to produce award-winning learning and serve this industry over the 3 decades. So that's in a nutshell who we are. And with that, we come to the conclusion. Very simple. Online work is generating a ton of user-generated content that must rapidly reach employees through learning experiences. Extracting, tagging, transforming the content will help us design a process that converts the content into learning experiences. And the technology transforms useful content and delivers it in the flow of work, saving time and resources. So that's the takeaway from here. And so at this point, we are ready for your ideas, your thoughts, any discussions, questions. We are here for you. Thank you. And back over to you, Shirley.
Yes, thank you so much, Vikas and Poonam. We do have a couple of questions that popped in. And also thank you so much for sharing that slide about the increase in meetings that we had experienced back in March. So I thought that information was really helpful. And I think we all felt like we were having more meetings, but to see the information in front of you is kind of a different feeling, right? So I encourage people, submit your questions if anything from today, if you have some more questions that pop into your head. But there's a couple that have come in. So I do want to read these over for you guys and see who would be best to answer. So the first one is, can I use AI to curate user-generated content and make it ready for e-learning? So whoever would like to take that question.
Yeah, maybe I can take that one since it's one of my areas of interest. So Um, so the answer is absolutely. And AI can be used for content curation. And I think Poonam just gave an example where she sort of took a meeting transcript and selected certain pieces of it and made a list of questions. Or there are tools like Tint, I think it's from a company called FileStack, that curates content from almost over a dozen social networks. So all of this is user generated content. Or if you have very specific content, you could just build something of your own where you can have different technologies like Quillians for the selection part. And as far as the collection goes, you could use Solar Search or you could use Microsoft Bing. I think they're doing big on enterprise search where they can tap into multiple sources, content management systems, office documents, and so on. So collectively, I think AI can uh, do wonders in this space.
Thank you, thank you. And another one that popped in, and I believe Poonam, you did mention this, but someone had asked, how much time did it take to convert the video recordings to nudges? And then would this process work only with videos? I believe you said 3 days in that example, but maybe give another, recap to that.
Sure, Sherlyn. So yeah, for this particular example, we did take about 3 days from the time the meeting happened to rolling out the nudges. Usually we have seen, because we have done quite a few of those after this one, and 3 to 4 days is a good time frame to get the nudges to the team members, as in fact, at times even faster than that. Because the moment someone flags that this content is useful, from then to getting nudges is really a matter of highlighting what's important, running it through Quillians for questions, and creating nudges out of it. So it can be done even faster than 3 days. Coming to the second part of the question, which is it only for videos? Actually not. Anything which is in digital form, it could be case studies, white papers, even research reports, any doc tech content in the form of text, if we can get it, the entire process is neutral post that. So take anything which is useful and this process can be applied to it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Poonam. And thank you for clarifying video versus any of the other content as well, because not everything is video these days. A lot is, but there's so much more out there that maybe people don't think of as a first source for usage. Another question that popped in, our data resides in various systems. Does one need to integrate all these systems? Ooh, that is a good question. Who would like to answer that one? Maybe Subodh?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think I completely understand the thought process that's going behind it. And data is going to reside in multiple systems. And when you look at it from a broader lens of like a work tech where you're combining productivity systems to get more and more information, because all these systems, they hold a lot of data, you will need to integrate with them. But the big question would be, do I need to integrate with all of them? Possibly not, because it all depends on the type of problem that you're trying to solve and what are the most important data sources that are not going to distract all the curation that you're going to do. So I think selectively integrating would be a key.
Mm-hmm. Perhaps that leads into our next question. If we buy an LXP platform, do we need to integrate it with our content sources and delivery mechanism, or does it come inbuilt? Vikas, would you maybe like to take this one?
Yeah, so learning experience platforms like Percipio by Skillsoft or Edcast or Degreed or these days nearly everybody calls themselves learning experience platforms. So LXP's basic premise is that you focus on delivering highly personalized learning in short learning bursts in the flow of work while you're doing, the things that you are doing otherwise in your day job. And so by the very design, these platforms syndicate all kinds of content. They have a lot of different sources that could potentially feed into these platforms. And the platforms then essentially provide channels to push the content out. Think of it like Netflix, When you're in Netflix, you see these little tiles and each tile describes one movie. And then you click and you see if you like it and then you launch, So it's exactly identical. That's the learning experience. There are channels and you click on a channel and you get, several small learning experiences. So what goes inside those learning experiences is actually coming from somewhere. The LXP is integrating content from other sources. So your own content sources can very much be integrated. The short answer was yes, but I just wanted to draw it out and say that yes, a big yes.
Thank you, Vikas. And then we do have one more question that popped in, and that is, does SprinkleZone integrate with other LMS such as Moodle? Who would like to take that one?
Yeah, maybe I'll go first, and Vikas, Poonam, feel free to chime in. So yeah, at SprinkleZone, it can integrate with Moodle and with other LMS. I think Poonam, in her examples, she showed how it works with Teams. And for SprinkleZone, an LMS becomes like a data source. So it gets data that perhaps belongs to the organization, which is very specific, maybe product training and things like that. So it can get that from the LMS and play it out in the small bite-sized form. And at the same time, LMS, they do need feedback on how that content has been used. So SprinkleZone can push it back into the LMS. So I think that's a great way in which LMS content can be reused in a bite-sized way.
I would plus one that's about the learning management system is essentially a system of record. Its job is to keep track of who took what and at what time and did they complete it. So that's the boring part. The exciting part is what SprinkleZone does, which is to show you the learning experience that you need. If you are about to go and interview a candidate, it will pop a little thing about interviewing skills. Or if you're about to go into a one-on-one meeting with a manager, it's going to show you, here's something on effective reporting. So that's the value of SprinkleZone. The value of the learning management system is to answer questions like, did Subodh do all his lessons? Yes, he did. Okay. All right. So I think that the system of record and the system of engagement are a little different in the way they are designed. Their purpose is a little different. But yes, they could integrate well.
Mm-hmm. It looks like that's the last question that came in. Is there anything else that you guys that came to mind in reference to the questions that we just received? Do you want to also add to the conversation?
Well, all I can say is it's been great to be here on your forum, Charlene. Thank you for that. And our message is clear. There's going to be more and more and more of organizational content, user-generated content. And that's the latest you have. And you're going to have to use that, harness that, curate that, and create learning experiences. Use as much automation as you can, and keep up with the learner's expectations. So the whole notion is how to improve the velocity of content transformation and go from where it is, which is just a bunch of UGC, to curated, exciting learning experiences that are delivered in a timely, personalized fashion in the flow of work. And in pursuit of that vision, we are here with you and we can help you as you go.
Thank you, Vikas. Thank you, Poonam. Thank you, Sabod. But yes, I mean, 3 to 4 weeks. I don't think we live in that world right now. I think we need things to be completed in 3 days. I think we need things to be created faster and quicker and more engaging. And I love all of the examples. I thank you, Poonam, for your demonstration as well. And I think that was wonderful. I just want to let everyone know who joined us today. Thank you so much for joining us. And the recording for today will be made available if you do need to go back and continue to take some notes and whatnot. And we'll also provide the contact information as well if you have any further questions for Vikas or Poonam. So with that, I thank all of you guys for joining us today. And I thank all of our speakers today. And I wish you guys the best. And I say goodbye for today.
Thank you.
Thank you.